Hello, this is old Joe from Old Joe's Fishing Show and Outdoors. Bigfoot stories, guitar playing, and just stuff. And I've wrote several Bigfoot stories just out of my head and just made them up. And this is the only one I've got wrote down, and I'm not sure if I'm a good storyteller or not. But I'll try reading this. Okay. And this story is called I Do Believe in Bigfoot. Okay? Like I said, this is any uh, resemblance to anything or anybody is purely coincidental. Because this just came out of my brain before I just thought of it, and so here it is. I'll try to do it. If I make mistakes, I guess I will. Like I said, this is called I Do Believe in Bigfoot. I'll try to read it as I wrote it. Okay. The weather was going to be beautiful for the Easter weekend. And because of a very low snowfall this winter, it was possible to get to the Hams Fork campground and the river there, do some picnicking and fishing with my family. My wife Liz, my son Connor, our 16-year-old son, and Levi, our border collie, and John. And me, I'm John. We thought we were going to have a wonderful day of enjoying the spring-like weather. We never thought it was going to turn out to be the worst day our family ever had, and we feel lucky to have come out of there alive. But our dog Levi, he wasn't so lucky. The Hams Fork area is located in the southwest part of Wyoming. It's tall mountains covered in pines and aspen, and has some good fishing streams and some thick willows, and it has beaver dams. And there's cows and moose and elk are plentiful. And there's beavers there too, because of all the beaver dams. All through the bottomland, and there's also a few bears that roam just about anywhere in that area, but you don't hardly ever see them, but all you have to do is keep an eye out for them. They always, for the most part, you don't see them, and they run away from you. There were not a lot of people there this spring. Most people go out on the deserts on the Easter holidays anyway, and the few others that were there, they were just sightseeing from their cars and trucks or from the roads. But as for us, we planned on going through the thick willows and the winding river to find some wild brook trout that swam in this particular part of the river. And we also wanted to get some pictures and videos to add to our collection for our home videos. Me and Connor, we're the fishermen, and Liz was our camera lady. The willows were thick. Just as you got off the road and went into them, they was thicker than hair on a dog. But if you wanted the bigger fish that lived in the stream, you had to go through them willows to get to the better part of the river and maybe fish some of the beaver ponds that are there. And this isn't working. Oh, there it is. I'm sorry about that. I'll start over on this particular chapter. The willows were just as thick as you could hear in a dog as you entered the willows from the road. They was nobody ever had. Only ones that ever went in there was the cows or the moose or the deer or the elk. But if you wanted to get the big fish, you had to pry your way through them willows to get to the best water. Our dog Levi, he loved to play in the water, and he'd fetch the sticks we would throw, and he'd chew them up into little pieces. Anyway, we passed a few little ponds, and you could see there's deer tracks and moose tracks, but we couldn't see a lot of fish in them pools. But then we came across this big pond, and I seen some fish start down underneath the undercut banks there, and we hope to get some good video of us fishing. And as soon as we got there, Liz had been taking some pictures, but as soon as we got there, the battery went dead in the video camera. And she went to replace a fresh battery, and it was dead too, along with the still camera she had in her bag with her. Anyway, then we noticed something really strange. As before we got there, we heard that the birds was singing and the insects was buzzing, and you could hear the wind blowing through the willows. But as soon as them batteries went dead, all we could hear was the water gurgling down the river. It was just like somebody flipped the switch and everything went dead quiet except for the river. But anyway, we was going to try to fish this big pond, and I let Connor go first, because that's what fathers do. And in the first 5 casts, he caught 5 nice brookies. And a nice brookie there is maybe 12 inches long, but they taste good. Can't get fresher and better fish than a fresh brook trout and caught in clean water. So then it was my turn. And I got to throw my lure in the pond, and I caught 3 more. So that was 8, and that's all we needed for dinner. So we decided it was time to go back and look for, eat our dinner we'd brought and cook the fish we'd caught. But we was gonna leave, and since the camera went dead, Liz had walked over to the other side, and she was looking for rocks and stuff. And she was looking on the ground, and I motioned for her to come over, and she looked up at us, and she yelled at us and said, "Come here, there's something you gotta see." So we went over, and we looked to see what she'd found. And in amongst the deer and the moose and the elk and the track, there's tracks all over, the nice mud bank, intermixed with some rocks. She said, "John, I just found a bear track." I looked down at it, and I said, "I don't know. That's one of the strangest bear tracks I've ever seen." So then before we left, we started looking around, and there was more tracks. And they was big, and you couldn't see any claws from a bear. They looked human, except they was huge. I put my foot down next to them. I wear a size 13 13-inch boot, and them tracks had to be, at least the one we was looking at there, had to be 18, 19 inches long, probably 7, 8 inches across. And I said, whoa, I says, them are people tracks, but boy, they're huge. What would a person be out here running around in bare feet anyway? Nobody comes back here. They don't even get off the main road, let alone come back in here. And so we was looking down at them tracks, and there's some smaller ones too, maybe 12, 13 inches long, but they're still wide, had great big toes. I mean, it was perfect sand for making tracks too. And we looked down into them tracks, and the water was still seeping into them. So I thought, ooh, whatever with them tracks, he is close. You know, because I made a track, and it wasn't a few seconds, and my track started filling up with water. So we was looking at it, and Liz had Levi on a leash while we was fishing, but she unsnapped that leash, and he came over and he was sniffing around, and he sniffed in them tracks. Ooh, and his hair went up his fur stood straight up, and he started growling and showing his teeth. But he was doing this underneath me. He was trying to hide underneath me. But he knew something was going on with them tracks. And I wish I would have had the cameras working, but sorry, they didn't. The batteries went dead, and it was still quiet as a grave, except for that trickle into the water. And anyway, the Levi, our border collie, he was looking over into the willows. They went 10 yards away from us, from where we were standing. And it must have been down on its belly, because all of a sudden it stood up. And this thing was huge. It was 8.5 feet tall. And it was sort of like a dark brown color. Had shoulders and muscles on his arms. The shoulders was probably 4 feet wide. He was muscular, like a muscle man, He was just huge. You could tell he was strong. He had hair, not fur, all over his body, and he was looking at us. And Levi was just underneath growling, but he wouldn't come out. Whatever it was, he was scared of it, but he was still trying. We're his family, and he's trying to protect us. But anyway, this creature, I'll call it a creature, because and talk about stink. And it was just a fear went through us all, and actually became weak. All of us. It's not just me. It was all of us, sort of. And this creature, he went growl. He growled. It was a low growl. big mouth, big yellow teeth. And he took a step toward us. And when he did that, Levi, to protect us, he ran at that thing, growling and barking. And he got just a little too close, and that thing reached down like and grabbed Levi like he was a rag doll. And right before our eyes, he grabbed our poor Levi, and he ripped off his head. And it was, we couldn't believe what we were seeing. And if I would have had, I didn't even have a gun. I didn't even have a knife. But what he did to our dog, he ripped off his head, he turned around, and he disappeared back into the willows. Anyway, we was in shock. Our beloved pet had just been killed by some 8.5-foot creature trying to defend us. And I told my family, I told Connor and Liz, I says, we're leaving now, right now. And Connor, you keep an eye on what's in back of us, because we're going. And we didn't care whether we went straight for the road. We splashed through creeks and mud. And the only time we took a detour because the water was too deep for us to go straight across. And we was going, and Connor kept looking behind us. But he couldn't see nothing, but it was still quiet. And then we got maybe about 500 yards away from the truck. And it started out slow. We had little pebbles just flying at us. You could see them in the rocks. You could see the rocks. The little pebbles, they was coming. And they wasn't coming just one or two at a time. They was coming two by the handfuls. And they kept getting, because the closer we got to the truck, the bigger they got. And it started throwing out willows that looked like they was pulled out of the roots. And then the rocks started getting bigger, and one about as big as a walnut hit Connor on the back of the head, put him down like boom. Luckily, all he got was a goose egg, and we got him back up, and we said, "Go! We got to keep going. If we stop, I feel like we're not going to make it out of here alive." So on we went. So we got back close to the road, and then it was maybe 100 yards, and all of a sudden, the rocks stopped flying. The birds started chirping again, and but there was and Liz heard something in her purse and went click, was clicking. Her camera came back on off of a dead battery. It was one weird experience, and I tell you, we was scared. All we wanted to do was get to that road, get back to the truck, and get the hell out of there. So finally we got to the road, and we was covered in mud, head to toe, and we started going back along. We was tired. We started going back toward the truck, which was quite a bit down the road, and luckily there was a car stopped, and he seen us, and they stopped and asked us for help. They said, "Something wrong?" I said, "I don't want to talk about it, but could you give us back a ride to our truck? We gotta get home. We gotta get out of here." Yes.